these artificial antibacterial compounds on. The higher these cones are, the less activity you have, and you can see that the natural one is really effective for Streptococcus. Ours is almost as effective, because the first one, the blue line, the blue one in the front is a natural one, the red and the green one is two different lengths of the triazole bridges, and you can see ours is active almost the same as a natural one. And in the last case, in the Bacillus subtilis, there's no activity whatsoever of the natural compound, probably because this bacteria knows how to open up the disulfide bonds. It cannot do that with a triazole, so you can say that we might be able to avoid multi-resistancy using click chemistry instead of these disulfide bonds towards this kind of antibiotics. In the next example, we are looking at a protease. Protease is an enzyme that cleaves peptides and proteins. And they are very valuable compounds. This is the tools, the factory of the living organism. So we would like to be able to express that in coli. We tried to do that, but the coli was pretty unhappy about that. And the reason is that the protease that you express start cleaving the proteins inside the colibacteria. So they die, and you get a little bit of expression and everything disappears. So what could we do? Well, we could clip it into two, we could cut it into two pieces and express these pieces separately. Here's two pieces expressed by colibacteria. We isolated those and we asked the coli, is this a good idea? And the coli answered, yes. Because we got several hundred milligrams of each of these fragments suddenly, and we could combine them one to one and click them quantitatively into active protease. So these are the two long fragments that we made. We put them together like that. We came in with a copper 1 ion, and we made the triazole here at the bridge. This is the protease, and then we looked at the activity using an assay which is based on fluorescence. So you see there's a FRET substrate. When it cleaves, you get more fluorescence. And that's what we are observing. And you can see our protease is actually a little bit more active than the natural protease. So that was very satisfying. And probably an entry to expressing proteases generally. So here we are, back in Stockholm. Very nice day. This is a day where you actually give your lecture, and you get the Nobel Prize. Oh no, sorry, this is the day of the ceremony. You get the Nobel Prize from the king. He hands you the Nobel Prize, and he holds onto the medal, and you stand a little bit like that. You are eventually allowed to hold it for a short while, but then he takes it back. I was wondering what was going on, but the reason is that many of us who got the Nobel Prize did this experiment 20, 40 years ago, and some of the Nobel laureates is a little bit off by now. So they forget the Nobel Prize under the seat in the ceremonial hall. But then at the end of the whole week we get it. So this is in the back office of the Academy of Sciences in Sweden. You get the Nobel Prize. I think and this is what it looks like. So Martin Wolfram was a researcher in the lab who was working on Alzheimer peptides. He was trying to make molecules that would be able to cleave Alzheimer peptide. Alzheimer is, of course, this disease I'm just talking about in the ceremonial hall. You getting memory loss and so on. So we would like to be able to cleave the peptides in the Alzheimer disease, the peptides that are responsible for formation of the plaques. Now we made carbines and dipyridines that could bind metals which would then catalyze the catalysis and cleavage of these Alzheimer peptides. And it worked fantastically. It was amazing how good it worked. And we lowered the concentration of the catalyst and still worked. And we lowered it again and it still worked. And then we left it out completely and it still worked. So what was going on? Of course, what happened was that these Alzheimer peptides actually aggregate into active proteases themselves. And we investigated this in more detail by synthesizing all the different fragments of the Alzheimer 1 to 42 peptide. And we then investigated how these actually combine and process themselves. This is an autocatalytic proteolytic reaction. So you can see here from F0, so we start with F0. We start with F0, and then we form first F1, then F4, and then F6. So these are the fragments that form all by themselves using these peptides, and you can see the masses of them over on the right side. So we could follow the kinetics, and there's a time, latency time, and then the kinetic starts, and we get this complete conversion in no time. We can even take a small seed of active, catalytically active compound and add it to a non-active substrate, and this will hydrolyze immediately. So if we look at the Alzheimer peptides here, as shown here, you can see it forms sort of donut-shaped compounds. You can see it in the AFM microscope images. So donut-shaped compounds, and these then collapse into small fragments of fibril, and these small fragments then combine into long fibrils. You can see that very clearly on the central image below. So when we take a small amount of this catalytically active peptide and add it to an unactivated material, you can see the unactivated material, both at 37 and 25 degrees, look like that, and there's nothing happening. But if we add this, immediately we get the cleavage reaction going, and you can see now we have much less fibrils here. So we only have these donuts, and now our REM sleep actually is able to wash out all of this debris during the night. That is what the REM sleep is for. We swell up during the day, and then at night in the REM sleep our brains squeeze and the liquid flows out with all the debris, all the pollution of the brain. So we think this could be very interesting also for an intervention. So we have discovered this new pathway with what we call ACR. It's catalytic, and it forms a catalytic complex where some of these peptides aggregate into something that looks like a protease. That's what I showed in the previous slide. No, I didn't. Okay, it's combined into something that looks like a protease, and that cleaves to give us the debris. So if you are a young person, you should actually focus on what is important, not only for you, but also for the society in general, because that is where you will have the most success in your research. So I think that the green agenda could actually be a real good driver for our future researchers, not only finding immediate solutions to the problems, but also making fundamental research that can help us in the long run, but with this perspective of solving the green issues. So here is a material that Manat Remil made a couple of years ago in our laboratory. It's made out of straw and soya oil, and it's tougher than the polymers that you are surrounding yourself with in your phones. It's really strong, and it is completely tight. It is not water compatible. It's not sucking in water, so it's a really nice material that can be used just like we have the fossil materials today. We should also look at production processes. Here's shown a catalyst that we have developed out of non-natural amino acids, an enzyme that can do peptide cleavage, but a lot of other areas can be looked at and improved with respect to production. The green issue is also including going over to hydrogen. I think you in India has a unique opportunity of leaping over the electric car scenario, because if you first install the infrastructure of electric cars in India, you will not be able to do hydrogen cars, which is a much better alternative in the long run. So I urge all of you young people to take a look at whether this could be interesting to find solutions to make good hydrogen cars. There's also an issue of food. So food science is very important. It's also chemistry. Textile is also chemistry. Here's a textile made from bamboo, very soft and tender. I'm sure you also have this kind of processes here. And then the transport sector. These are the sectors that are really needing your input for the future. So we want use in chemistry because chemistry is much more than just an education. Chemistry is everything around us. And there's a lot of positive consequences of educating not only the best talents, but all of us in chemistry. It's very important if you are a construction worker that works with concrete, that you know what you're making, what is happening in your concrete. If you have a bit of chemistry background, you can very easily understand that. If you're a baker, what happens with your flour and your yeast and so on. If you are a carpenter, what is the properties of this wood that you're working with. So chemistry could be a very central part also of our political position, because if we look at, for example, the water cycle that we have broken so seriously today, the water cycle, which is the water evaporates down at equator, it is ascends because of the heating at equator. It comes up and it goes out and it falls down. It has done so for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. The difference now and before is that now it goes higher up, further out, and much more comes down. So we get flooding and we get drought at the same time, which is a bit paradoxical, but that's what happens. So we are actually destroying the water cycle that we have on Earth, and this is very serious, and this is why, as you heard this morning, we need to keep it within the 1.5 degree, and everybody in the world, independent of all our differences, independent of our political crisis, needs to take this very seriously. So it has environmental, climatical, political, and regional consequences to teach in chemistry from an early stage. So we should start early, curriculum in the school. We should use visualization, images rather than formula, to teach this world, this three-dimensional world of chemistry. So we suggest that you make a video repository where everybody can go in and find very consistent videos about everything in chemistry, starting from first grade to hydrogen atoms that moves around and find each other and unite, make a hydrogen atom, storing energy that we can release by burning it off with oxygen and so on. All the way up to DNA and proteins and how they interact and why is that then. So we have this repository, we call it. The answer is what week and what grade, and we get the video that is needed for that in the school. And that can be done in a very global manner. It's very easy to take the sound off and make it in your language, in anything, Swahili, Portuguese, whatever language we want to have it, it can be done. So, factors that influence the choice for you young people of education is, of course, your knowledge, very important factor. So that is one reason you need some factual knowledge. But it's also the parental influence, and you should be very careful and have the courage to listen to your heart there. Also, you have institutional influence, so there's institutes that wants you to do this or that. Listen to them, but don't make them do your choices. Have the courage to actually say, no, that's not what I want. You're going to do that for the rest of your life, so it's pretty important that you do the right thing. It could also be status and opportunity that makes you to take a choice. But I like the existential content, and I think your satisfaction with your work is the most important thing in life. And education choices relates to your identity, and your identity building starts very early. So you are building your identity from age of 8, probably 7, 6. And this is largely emotional. If you have a teacher which talks to your heart, you choose that teacher's subject in your subsequent career. This is general. And of course, you should be in control of that, because it's not certain that the teacher does the right thing. So you can also get your identity from your friends or colleagues. And then you can believe in authority. I think authority makes a huge difference in many places for what kind of education you have. But it's your choice. It's identity by knowledge. It's identity also via global influence. Yeah. So you should start early, that you can match the social needs, societal needs that are out there, and get a good job which satisfy you for the rest of your life, where you contribute to society just as much as society contributes to you. So this is the final part where we are at the ceremonial dinner. And before that, my wife has spotted this at the Nobel Museum. This is a dress that was made by the arts faculty at the Stockholm University, and they made this dress for each of the, or one dress for each of the 6 Nobel Prizes. And this dress here, when my wife spotted that, I said, I want to wear that at the ceremonial dinner. I said, okay. But she was very persistent, and she actually convinced them to make this dress into her size in 24 hours. And as you can see, it's really an artist that had made this, because all the rings are hexagonal, and the click reactions actually make a 5-member ring. But when you dress up your wife like that, there's a great chance that somebody else goes away with her. This is Prince Philip of Sweden, and he put my wife between him and Daniel, and I was sitting down there in the back somewhere. Yeah, okay, but that was actually okay, because the next day we were at the Royal Palace for a very intimate dinner with 130 people, and I got the bright spot. So with that, I would like to thank all the people who have involved in the chemistry of the click reaction over the years, and in many other reactions that we developed in the Carlsberg laboratory, also all our collaborators over the time. In particular, I would like to thank the Danish National Research Foundation for funding, Carlsberg Laboratory and University of Copenhagen for housing us, Klaus Bock and Carlsberg Workshop in particular for helping out with much of this platform building. Yeah, we had a lot of fun in those days. You can just talk with Manat Renil, and he will tell you that this was a very nice environment. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor. It was a very informative and fantastic lecture. And we get to know a lot the science of click chemistry, as well as the wide application that it offers. And we get to also the words of wisdom to the younger generation of Kerala. Thank you so much. And now we have a short time for interaction. The students are encouraged to come forward.